The April 25th, 2024 meeting is now called to order. The first item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. Brianne, will you lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The next item is agenda changes and adoption of agenda. Does the board have any recommended changes to tonight's agenda?
I do. I would like to make a motion to add item 6.1.6, Rick Eckert's resignation to the consent agenda.
Okay, we have adding 6.1.6, which will be adopting Rick Eckert's resignation. Okay, does the majority of, are there any other agenda changes? No? Okay, we don't need a roll call vote, but does the majority of the board agree to the recommended changes?
Yes.
Okay, I'm seeing that the majority of the board agrees, so we'll be adding item 6.1.6, which is accepting Rick Eckert's resignation. Okay, thank you. The next agenda item is school connections. The board would like to thank Miranda Smallwood, Kingston High School principal, and Cara Lentz, Suquamish Elementary School principal, for preparing and presenting the Kingston High School and Suquamish Elementary School data. At this time, I would like to turn the meeting over to Rachel Davenport, Miranda Smallwood, and Cara Lentz to present the Kingston High School and Suquamish Elementary School data.
Thank you. Also with Miranda tonight is Assistant Principal Matt Mosley, also in charge and works very closely with our choice program.
All right, I'm gonna practice before I get started on if I can make the clicker functional. Okay, thank you. All right, thank you so much for inviting us here tonight to share our School Connections presentation. As introduced, my name is Miranda Smallwood. I'm in my second year as principal at Kingston High School. I'm here tonight as well as Matthew Mosley, who is joining us for his first year at Kingston High School as assistant principal and program administrator for Choice Academy. And we would like to open with appreciation for our school board, for our district administrators, for our school board student rep, for their guidance and support, and of course to our students, our families, and our community, without whose partnership we would not be as happy, joyful, and successful as a school. Next, please. Our goals for this evening are to ensure our school board and community understand how the NKSD strategic plan is operationalized at the building level at Kingston High School, what data we are using to monitor our progress, and what action steps we are considering and or taking in response to continued challenges and celebrations of growth, to ensure that we offer education and programs that lead to equitable student access and success, both in high school and post-secondary pursuits, in academics, social and emotional wellness, and the behaviors we believe will support them into adulthood and beyond. At the most basic level, our ultimate goal is that all students graduate ready for success in their post-secondary plans as they launch into college and career opportunities that they've been prepared for throughout their K-12 education. To do this, we believe that students should be proficient in reading, writing, math, science, and 21st century instructional technology skills, and be present and engaged at school with a sense of belonging, pride, and a culture of inclusion. The mission of Kingston High School has remained the same since our inception. Trying to find the mission and vision slide. Thank you. Missed one. Let me just pause there. Has remained the same since our inception in 2007, for students to have a rigorous education that challenges them to graduate both college ready, while also being involved in and caring for their community. And if we go to goal 4, please, that has the strategic plan goal. Thank you, Corey. I appreciate the target goals. There's a T chart. There we are. Thank you. Thank you, teamwork. When we design and assess our goal of ensuring all students graduate ready for success in their post-secondary plans, we look to make sure our students are on track with earning their high school graduation credits, ensuring that we disaggregate data with an equity lens. In addition to passing all classes, we also work to ensure all students have access to advanced coursework that is often represented in our CTE and college-level dual credit courses. We know that some students enter Kingston High School as 9th graders, ready and prepared to succeed in 6 periods of rigorous coursework. We also know that some students have not had the same experiences and opportunities, but that they are just as capable to succeed when provided the right environment, resources, and supports. The satellite data that we use to determine our progress are our on-time graduation rates, course completion data, and dual credit enrollment. Our on-time graduation rates have been steadily rising over the past 10 years. You'll notice a dip in the year that we returned from remote learning, data consistent with high schools across our state and our nation. We are proud to see an 8% rise in our graduation rate last year from that data point, and expect that this spring, our on-time graduation rate will be close to 95%. When we disaggregate our graduation data, When we disaggregate our graduation data for our students who identify as Hispanic, Native American, and receiving special services, we see that overall 4-year grad rates have increased over 3% over the last 4 years. Special education 4-year grad rates have increased almost 6% over the past 4 years. Hispanic graduation rates have dropped almost 6% over the last 4 years. This visual of our on-time and 5th-year graduation data demonstrates that over the past 5 years, we are close to reaching and on track to surpassing our pre-pandemic graduation rates within the next 3 years. You can also see that within 1 to 2 years after graduation, we support on average, an additional 6% of our non-graduating students in earning their diplomas, preventing them from dropping out of high school. In order to make progress toward our goals, KHS commits to next steps that include instructional practices, equitable policy implementation, and data-based interventions that prioritize individualized student supports. In taking these steps, we expect to see an increase of our on-time graduation rates to hit at least 96%, with at least a 10% increase for our students in historically marginalized populations, including our Hispanic and Native American students, as well as students receiving special education services. The course completion rates of our 9th grade students are a strong predictor of on-time graduation rates. You can see that there was a drastic drop in 9th grade on-track data after our return from remote learning. While the overall percentage of 9th graders on track for last school year was 59.1%, when reviewing our panorama data, we see that 66% of our 9th grade students were passing all their courses at the end of 2nd semester last school year, and 76% of our 9th grade students passed all of their courses first semester of this school year. This indicates that student performance and success is increasing, leading us to predict an upward trajectory of our state level 9th grade on-track data for this school year and beyond. When we review the course-specific data for our 9th grade cohort at the end of last school year, so this is data from spring 23, we see that the most success of our 9th grade students in ELA and social studies, with 81% and 77% passing respectively. The most challenges for our 9th grade students are in math and science, with 69% and 70% passing respectively. Next, please. When reviewing the same data for the current 9th grade cohort this school year, we see continued strengths for our 9th grade students in ELA with 83% passing, and consistent performance of 65 to 67% course passing for social studies, math, and science. In addition to passing all of their courses, we strive to encourage and support enrollment of all students in our CTE and advanced placement dual credit courses. Over the course of the last 3 years, our student enrollment in these programs has increased 7.5%. We are continuing to add and adapt new programs in response to student voice and community partnerships, and look forward to this number rising steadily in the next 2 to 4 years. For the next school year, this is a list of courses that have been offered to our students during the registration process. And we also have several potential dual credit college and high school offerings that are currently in the works for next school year and or beyond. As part of our action steps to increase the percentage of our 9th grade students on track to graduate and close the variance in success rates for our historically marginalized students, KHS staff are prioritizing the creation of a comprehensive MTSS plan, or multi-tiered systems of support, and student scheduling to support team-based decision-making models. We believe that by holding consistent to these action items, we will see an 80% success rate of our 9th grade students on track in their coursework, and at least 75% of our student body participating in CTE dual credit, advanced placement, and college and high school coursework. As we shared in our introduction, our primary goal is to ensure students graduate ready for success in their post-secondary plans as they launch into college and career opportunities that they've been prepared for throughout their K-12 education. And that to do this, students must be proficient in reading, writing, math, science, and 21st century technology skills. Our second goal this evening is to share our current progress in our state assessment scores in light of that expectation. The data that we use to track these goals include our state testing scores, as well as student, staff, and family perceptual data for blended learning preparedness. When comparing our spring 2022 data to this past spring of 2023, we see that our ELA scores have increased 7%, math scores have increased by 5.1%, and our science scores have increased by 8.8%. These overall increases are motivating and promising, speaking to much of the commitment of our students and families, as well as our staff collaboration within the PLC structures of curriculum review and planning and student data assessment. While reviewing our overall progress and celebrations in this coursework, we are also committed to reviewing our disaggregated data by racial demographics and special population. This visual shows a targeted disaggregation based on racial and cultural identity, as well as special populations of students receiving special services and students who are temporarily living in poverty. These are demographics that our data would suggest we are not serving commensurate with their needs. Our data shows that we've had steady success of increased proficiency for each student demographic in our ELA and science programs, and a consistent drop in our math proficiency rates over the course of the last 2 years. For our state testing this April and May, we've also made some adjustments to our allocated testing structure and schedule, and our planning, and in the midst of some intentional climate and culture work during our state testing season. To help improve our testing culture, we started sharing information in March with our students and families in anticipation of our assessments to help everyone feel informed, prepared, and comfortable with the experience. We know that standardized assessments can cause anxiety and stress, and that this can often impact both attendance and performance. We want to make sure our students and families know that while the assessments are a critical and important measure of the health of our school programs and in determining graduation readiness for individual students, they are only one measure, not the ultimate measure of our students' strengths. In addition to the short-term focus on testing climate and culture and the end-of-day and after-school academic tutoring and support adjustments that we've made, we're also embedding WICR, which stands for Writing, Inquiry, Collaboration, Organization, and Reading strategies within the AVID framework, strategic academic interventions into our MTSS plan under our Tier 1 or our universal practices. By following these action steps, we expect to see increases of 10 to 20% in proficiency scores between this spring and spring of 2025. As we shift into a look at our blended learning preparedness data, you'll see teacher perception data from last spring, increases from 13 to 26%. According to our students this fall who took this survey, our greatest strengths in regard to blended learning are to use technology to help students take ownership and to personalize their learning. And our greatest struggles are to use technology to tap into imagination and explore creativity and to think critically and solve real world problems. According to our staff this fall who took this survey, our greatest strengths are to use instructional technology to support collaboration and to help students take ownership of their learning, which is also what students shared. Our greatest struggles are to use instructional technology to tap into imagination and explore creativity and to communicate with different people in different ways, which is also what our students shared. So there's some alignment there between our student and staff perception data. We believe that continued focus on the identified strength of using technology to support collaboration, combined with a focus on intentional collaborative strategies in the AVID framework, will help us grow in these challenging areas and see an increase in creativity and exploration using defined protocols and processes. In our work towards seeing increased staff and student responses to our blended learning proficiencies, in the spring of 2025, we are committed to increased PD and job-embedded modeling of those targeted skills, tools, and strategies. Many of our goals and strategies to support increased proficiency levels for students in ELA, math, and science rely on our implementation of the AVID framework. We're working to define what this means for our staff in the context of our MTSS blueprints and our playbook, and look forward to continued professional development and progress as a staff to understand and commit to a collective set of instructional strategies, executive functioning, and note-taking skills in the AVID framework to increase both accessibility and rigor in our academic coursework. Our final goal area to review this evening is under MKSD Strategic Goal number 2. We believe that in order for our students to graduate prepared for success in their post-secondary college and career goals, they must demonstrate the behaviors and skills to pass their rigorous coursework and be proficient in ELA, math, and science standards. Reaching those goals requires strong relationships and mutual trust between and amongst our students, staff, and families. This last goal area speaks to our work on attendance, behavior, and skills beyond instructional technology that we're seeing as foundational to the 21st century educational, cultural, and marketplace experience, and a positive climate and culture that demonstrates a sense of belonging, pride, and inclusion. Our data sources for tracking these measures include our attendance data, climate and culture survey data, and our student SEL ratings, both under self-report and teacher perception. While our fall attendance rates this school year were lower than the same time period the year prior, we haven't seen a commensurate drop between winter and fall. At an average rate of almost 87% regular attendance this winter, we're concerned about our students who are not attending regularly. At the same time, many of our students are showing up regularly. 70% of our students have attended 90% or more of school days this year. 22% have attended between 80 to 90%, and 8% have attended less than 80%. The data presented here also shows a correlation between critical and at-risk attendance, which are selected in this marker, and critical and at-risk academic performance. We know that low attendance and academic progress are connected. As a result of our concern for the climate and culture of our school, individual student wellness, and the correlation between student success and regular attendance, our goal is to reduce non-illness related student absences to support all students attending 90% or more of our scheduled school days. Our attendance team will continue to monitor data, partner with students and families to identify barriers, and provide supports available to help our students meet their individualized goals. This past fall, our students, families, and staff took a school climate and culture survey. According to our students, our strengths at Kingston High School for students, and pleasant physical spaces. Our challenges include the behavior of other students having a negative impact on learning. When asked if they felt a sense of belonging at school, most students reported somewhat, with the smallest percentage of students reporting not at all at 13%, or a little bit at 15%. To be clear, our goal is for no student to report they don't feel like they belong at all, or only a little bit, or somewhat. While our families' responses demonstrated a drop from the spring prior to their perception of respectful relationships between students and staff, their fall responses were the most favorable compared to student and staff. We also saw an increase in positive responses from families regarding their assessment of a school environment that helps their child learn. We predict that this data will show market growth this spring as well, following our efforts at increased partnership, communication, structures, and supports for students and staff. And for all of our students and families who are here tonight, in person or on Zoom, if you haven't done your survey yet, here's your plug. We really rely on this data. Action steps taken that we expect will contribute to this growth include increased implementation of the AVID and Character Strong curriculums and frameworks that we use. Following these steps, we expect to see increased teacher efficacy following meaningful PD and culture building activities, increased percentage of student engagement in daily lessons, and increased student sense of belonging, connection, and enthusiasm. In addition to our climate and culture surveys, our advisory teachers complete a teacher perception survey for each student in their advisory class 3 times a year. This data is then tabulated with student self-reported responses to wellness questions to determine the strengths and challenges of our unique student body at KHS. According to this data, we've seen a marked increase in student strengths in all areas measured by these surveys. Our greatest growth has been demonstrated in both engagement and self-efficacy, and our greatest overall strengths noted in emotional regulation and social awareness. Students believe that our greatest strengths are in self-management, and our greatest challenges are in self-efficacy and challenging feelings. This data, combined with the previous teacher perception data of our biggest growth, opportunity, and social perspective taking, supports the direction of our staff, student, and family voice surveys that we've been sharing to identify what our top 3 to 5 behavior expectations. We need to explicitly define, support, and celebrate at Kingston High School. And where we currently have landed on those surveys is explicitly teaching and celebrating perseverance, integrity, and empathy, or PIE. So please get ready to be invited to some staff, student, and family time nights this coming fall. In order to decrease and ultimately eliminate our number of students who self-report and have and/or have staff report no or some strengths for SEL and well-being, will increase our use of the data dashboards to support our KHS care team and advisory teachers in identifying students in need of additional intentional supports in the form of small group or individualized services. We'll also use the Character Strong curriculum to increase our Tier 1 or universal practices to create a climate and culture that supports all of our students to be their best selves, ready to act as the informed citizens that we know that they are, and be empowered to care for their community and beyond. Thank you so much again for inviting us to present our data. I know it's a lot of information, and happy to have Phil take all of your questions. Or no. And happy to follow up on any questions too, because I know there's a lot of information.
Okay, any questions?
Yeah, I have a question. So what are the 5 most popular electives that the kids choose at Kingston?
So, current course registration, would tell you that the most popular electives are leadership, guitar, team sports, fitness and walking, I'm forgetting the 5th one off the top of my head. What's that?
Do the kids have select electives even if their grades aren't at proficiency?
Yes, yes. Yeah, we offer the same courses to all of our students and, encourage, robust options for all students.
I guess too, is choice included in this, will that be a separate presentation, or how does that work? I didn't know if you had any comments you wanted to make specific to, the choice.
The data in this presentation is specific for Kingston High School, but we would be happy to work and, compile some Choice Academy data.
I would say that the biggest difference between, choice and Kingston High School is that we have a much stronger emphasis on credit recovery with our students, so that's a really big focus with our students.
I would love to see, on that focus, it is a really wonderful focus to have, so.
And I'll also share that many, we've loved, getting to co-locate with Choice Academy this year. It's been a positive experience, and I think such a benefit for Kingston High School and our community and Choice Academy. And more and more of our Choice Academy students are becoming shared students with Kingston High School. So some of the data is for our Choice students because, they're taking classes at both Choice Academy and Kingston High School, which is great.
In both core academic and elective classes, they're the number of students that attend Choice Academy, it'd be very easily to identify which students would show up in the presentation such as this, and that type of information is suppressed to protect the privacy of those students.
It's not one of the,
Yes.
any good things we wanted to make sure we did, so thank you so much for that.
And I wanna thank you both for being here, for the work, this great presentation, and, please pass on a big thank you to your staff for all the hard work they do. I just had, one question, I don't know what slide this is, but when you were talking about all the percentage of, students who had passed ninth grade over time, and that percentage, then I think you mentioned you were comparing that to Panorama, and I think I got a little confused there.
Sure, and I didn't put the data visuals, so what's in the presentation, you'll see is what ultimately gets reported to the state. And so, that information can go through some different processes when they finalize what the Washington State report card at Kingston High School ninth grade on track rate is. The statistics I was referencing it's a bit more raw, the data's a bit more raw through Panorama, and hasn't gone through the state,
Has it
process, yeah.
But you would think that that percentage is higher than what we're seeing here?
Yeah, what I'm seeing in Panorama, I'm predicting, because the state data is always, delayed, in terms of the reporting, and so I'm using the current data to predict, I think,
Okay.
of what we expect to see, once those reports
Once
get
the
finalized.
reports, okay.
Yeah,
All right.
please hold me accountable to it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, and first, thank you, excellent presentation. Appreciate all the data and transparency, more importantly. So going through it, there were two things that kind of jumped out to me. The first was looking at instructional technology perception data. The percent favorable for students was 38%. I didn't get a chance to go and look at that versus other schools, but it kind of jumped out to me. Like, I'm sure you might not have this already, but any kind of dive into that? Why you think that
Of their
is?
comfort with the blended learning?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would have to do a deep dive into some of the specific questions that are asked in there, but anecdotally, we'll often hear from our students, that, sometimes there's so much technology, which is really positive, and there's so much of work to do, and collaborate with it, but, sometimes they also wanna take a break, from their technology. So I would wanna dig into the questions to see if, there's some information speaking to just that anecdotal experience that we hear from students
No one might.
of time and place.
We might have
Yeah,
some.
Yeah, it might be on the
sometimes it's
spot.
a little, like class after class using my computer, it's a little too much. So I like when there's, I don't know, just like note taking on paper or having a discussion. mixing that in with computer time is nice.
And that being said, our staff are, so appreciative of the space that our school is in, and so we often are, having teachers and classes be able to go outside and, make a lot of outdoor classroom spaces, that they're able to use and, get outside.
Okay, thank you. And then the second thing, the other one that kind of jumped out to me, not too much of a surprise, but just want to highlight it. After school, how much does the behavior of other students hurt or help your learning? And 15%. I think we've seen that through other presentations at other schools. So I was wondering if, are you currently conducting focus groups with students, or do you have a plan to do that in the future?
Yeah, we are, it needs to be tended to. The data is really clear both from staff, families, students, that, while there was the student marker of that there are, the strength of having fair rules of the school, there also is pretty stark data about the behavior pieces. And so we've been, we really believe in shared decision making at Kingston High School, and so we've been going through an iterative process this year with our staff, and then multiple student and family feedback surveys to get to that place where we even landed on the perseverance, integrity, empathy, to have conversations about when we say that the behavior of others is hurting our learning, what does that look like, in our community, and at Kingston High School, and why do we need to explicitly teach those things? And then also, we see and hear, about personal electronics and devices, and so we're also coupled with that having conversations about, cell phone policies and, that distracting nature, can really impact learning, both devices in the classroom when they're not being used appropriately, and the social media that's coupled with it, and the impacts of that on our students in the classroom. So we're having some pretty comprehensive and hard conversations about what are gonna be our common agreements.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think the personal devices piece of it that's interesting is one I hadn't thought about. I think that will continue to be a discussion in the future. So, not to totally put the emphasis on teachers and how they're responsible, but somehow to manage that.
Yeah, it's all of us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, excellent comments. Thank you, and appreciate you continuing to focus on this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Miranda.
Yes, thank you, Mary. Great presentation.
Tara?
I am ready.
Right.
Again, I'm Carlios, very, very proud principal of Suquamish Elementary. This is my third year, and I am going to try and consolidate over 140 days to just less than 20 minutes.
I thought you were gonna say 140 slides.
Well, there's quite a few, so I know you've seen our slides, and so I will be kind of skipping over some of them, and highlighting some of the great things that are happening in our building. Move on to the next. So our first goal focuses on our youngest learners, our kinders, first and second graders. Our building creates focus goals for both student growth and achievement as a metric of improvement within each goal of the strategic plan. This provides a targeted focus on student achievement results when implementing action steps related to our school improvement plan. And I hope to highlight some of those improvements that we are seeing this year. Our mid-year benchmark data was already showing growth in our early year grades, but not as much as we had hoped for. We took an opportunity to dive deeper into each grade level data and looked for specific trends or areas that needed more specific interventions. By utilizing our district and building COSIS to refocus interventions during WIN and class small groups, with targeted PDSA cycles to ensure that what was being done was having an impact on student achievement. And in those PDS cycles, I'm getting reports regularly of the amazing growth, particularly our kindergarten group is showing. So we are really optimistic for our spring grade report coming up. While we saw more growth in math, we have set goals that demand we get stronger results, so we're making adjustments particularly to our tier 1 instruction, such as a small group instruction during class time and not just during win time. And on to the next slide. I've highlighted on here our effective use of student data. Really wanted to bring your attention to this. And each PLC had the opportunity to meet with our building and district TOSAs to create targeted interventions for our students, not quite at standard, and enrichment for students who are meeting standards, and the opportunity to dive deeper into grade level standards. We regularly progress monitor our students, not at standard yet, every 2 to 3 weeks, and we are seeing continuous improvement. We believe a lot of learning will be demonstrated through assessments as we apply these strategies at the PLC level over the next 6 weeks and are eager to get our results. Not only are we using PLC data, but we're incorporating student data as well. And our next slide is a visual of some of those things that how we're tracking data. The first picture is a picture of a 2nd grade teacher's focus folder after a mid-year benchmark. At the beginning of beginning of the year, every student is placed on a sticky note and placed under a group according to the beginning of the year assessment. Each group has specific skills recommended to focus on based on student need. As a student masters those skills, those sticky notes are moved across the folder into the next area. The levels on the far left are those who are still below grade level, they are red, and the next are those students who are just below grade level, they would have been yellow. And the 3rd column are students at grade level with green, and 4th would be blue, those students who have skills that they need to be successful at their grade level. As you can see in this picture, most of the students are moving across the folder. And as you can see, a lot of those yellows that were on the left side are now reading at grade level or showing results of a 2nd grader. One of the things we do know, our reds who are still on the left side are still growing. They might still show, but their gap they have to close is quite a bit, so we know they're growing. The picture on the top is a student's graph of their growth. I'm seeing this in more and more of my classrooms, especially our member grades, and the impact teachers are reporting that students monitoring their own growth has been huge. And then the middle one is another data sheet that our teacher uses when discussing with their students their growth. Climate and culture surveys through Panorama have been used to collect data for our 2nd set of goals. Attendance is something we've been addressing all year, and we are beginning to see some small improvements as we go through the year. The next graph I'm kind of excited to have found, it's a new one to me, but Panorama gives us a different look at what our daily trends are for attendance. Beginning in end of December, January, we started doing some recognizing of students who are at school, not perfect attendance, but maybe have only missed 2 or less days. And that is when you start seeing an upward trend. As we start recognizing these kids publicly during our QBIS assemblies, I need to find an auctioneer that will help me read through these lists really quick, because we're getting more and more kids standing up every day, and that's pretty exciting. We do know there are some dips and peaks and valleys that we need to spend more time in and really analyzing what was going on those days. I can tell you the day October with high green would have been Halloween. It's amazing attendance that happens on that day. So but it gives us evidence of we need some more fun in school. Our climate data is something we continue to dive into and look specifically at the questions that are being asked, especially in the areas we see marked decrease. Between spring 2023 and fall of 2023, our largest decrease was in the area of school learning strategies. When I looked closer, I found that the biggest change was in our 3rd grade. After brainstorming and talking with staff, I found out that on the day that a 3rd grade class took this assessment, there had been a major event in a class prior to taking this, and they found their class scores had gone down. So we know when we're looking at data for kids who are just starting this process, it takes time to help them learn and reflect And so we're optimistic to see growth happening with our next results. We also did a deeper dive into our staff data regarding school climate, as we were seeing a decline in our school data, and it was concerning to our building leadership team. And so, we're going at the next, one more. So we added a mid-year site-based survey to monitor the impact that some of the things we did with our staff. We took the school climate, there are 22 questions that fall into that area. Well, 22 I just identified where we saw that decrease, and we resurveyed staff after we did some interventions as far as hearing, what is it they think our building leadership thought was impacting it. And when we regave the survey, or not regave it, we did progress monitoring. You can see on the next slide that out of the 22 areas, 4 areas were still areas of concern. And we, our building leadership has hypothesized that these 4 areas to target are based around curriculum. And in order to give access and support to our very busy staff, we've been utilizing release time, where subs are brought in to provide teachers time to learn, think, discuss, practice, and come away with specific strategies to implement. They've had time with building and district TOSAs, as well as representatives from CKLA and iReady. I've utilized resources carefully and strategically to support this need. This is an example of how our resources are being used in our building to support our teachers. Again, as in with goal 1, we created focus goals for goal 3 for student growth as a metric of improvement within each goal of the strategic plan, providing targeted focus on students. This area, grades 3 through 5, resulting when we implement, student achievement results when implementing action steps related to our school improvement plan. Down one more. For our 3rd through 5th grade, our reading dibbles growth was positive, yet not as much as we had expected. Diving deeper into some of the scores in the red, we noticed that students might have received below standard score. Many scores were approaching that just below standard and edging their way into what I call orange. The level where we mix yellow and red together, we get orange, right? I think. Again, this data is from January, and we are anticipating more measured growth and achievement by the time we assess again in late May. In the meantime, teachers and specialists are monitoring progress with groups of students to get information we need to adjust practices. Each grade level also has created additional goals for oral reading fluency, and in that area we have seen significant growth from the beginning of the year to the middle of the year. For our 3rd through 5th grade iReady math data, you'll notice that this information is based on beginning of the year data, benchmark data, and data we have just collected since we've returned from spring break. All 3 grades have had time to dive deeper into the results with the consultant from iReady last Thursday, and they set up some strategic interventions that each grade level could focus on before the upcoming SBAs in late May. I was so impressed with the work these groups did, then to see them actually implement this work the Monday after we discussed it, and seeing students making targeted growth for areas of concern. I'll go back one more comment on that assessment, because we gave it so early. I had a parent tell me that their 4th grader was not quite sure that the score reflected what they were capable of, because they just weren't feeling good that day, and they hope they can take it again. So again, I thought it was a great reflection on how our students are taking the assessment seriously. Let's go to the next slide. Diving in both feet into 2 new curriculums in 2 years has been a major undertaking for our staff, but I feel I have to brag about how the Suquamish team is utilizing these curriculums and have come away from each training we've had talking about new resources they've discovered or the research they've done on their own to utilize this curriculum to work at meeting the essential standards for their grade level. This last slide, Avid is alive and well. This is from a presentation our Avid team did about engaging strategies. And to take this deeper, I currently have been at a PBIS conference, and so we're gonna take this information and we're gonna take a look at how do these strategies also engage students for recall, so how they can communicate it. So we continue to use the information we've had all year and grow it as we practice. Growth continues to happen at Suquamish. Prep work for our new gym is underway. We've had to make some changes to our traffic patterns and our school community, and schools have embraced it positively, and understand why change has to happen. Staff continues to seek to find ways to best meet the needs of all students by utilizing the resources we have within our building, district, and our community. I believe that the look of pride on this little guy's face kind of summarize how our students are feeling. This was after he received an award at PBIS, and just that amount of pride our kids are taking in being recognized publicly, privately, and personally means a lot to all of us. And so we are seeing some great things happen at college. Thank you.
Okay, any questions?
I was just wondering, how are we doing with fifth grade math? Are they going to be more of them at grade level headed into middle school?
That's our hope. I mean, with our meeting we had this last week,